Fellow of the Middle East and North Africa Programme at the Chatham House International Affairs think tank. Yossi, thanks so much for your time. I mean, was Zoabi being a little bit naive? What did she expect of a Naftali Bennett-led government, that it wouldn't be hawkish and move to the right?
Well, I don't know if she was naive, but, everyone that is a member of this government had to give something in return and accept certain things that they won't be happy with. On the one hand, it was an impossible government to begin with, because it has anything from the very right to the left in Israel and anything in between. On the other hand, it's created an opportunity actually to create something new and different in discourse, especially after the toxic discourse created by Netanyahu. On the other hand, obviously, they couldn't have an agenda that is close to the heart, neither the right nor the left, but definitely the discourse right now is way closer. The policies are way closer to the one on the right. But I think it's, when we are talking about a minority administration, it depends on the day, and it depends almost of the time of the day we are talking about. Yes, it's a minority administration, a minority coalition, but at the same time, it depends on the issue. Some parties, including Ms. Zoabi, might support it from the outside.
Okay, so while you're talking to us, we're looking at these pictures, and just sitting to the right of Naftali Bennett is Yair Lapid. I mean, do you really think that this government, this minority coalition, can survive and complete its term? Because, of course, if it doesn't, that means Yair Lapid, in terms of his agreement with Naftali Bennett, probably may not become Prime Minister of Israel ever.
I think most of us thought from the first day probably of this government that Lapid will never become a prime minister, at least under this condition. It will take another election or a miracle. But it doesn't look very likely. It didn't look likely from the very outset of this government, and it's falling apart. What we see is actually a very slow and painful death of this coalition government, because instead of building inside the discourse within, that's a kind of shock observer that can take all the shocks, and they will happen on a daily basis, especially in a country like Israel. Every tiny shock actually will push someone out of the coalition. And when the majority to begin with was of 161 against 59, when two people already left this coalition government, it's not very likely that it will survive much longer. The only caveat that I'll put with that, the threat of Netanyahu being back in power is what keeps all the other parties together in this coalition, and also those who support it from the outside.
Yossi, really appreciate the analysis. Thank you so much indeed. Yossi Mekelberg.